here at the Livermore Fire Department, they have a light bulb that's been burning for 105 years. I really want to see this.
Some machines built a century ago shouldn't still be running, but they are. They survive fires, floods, neglect, and even total abandonment, yet they power on like nothing happened. Engineers open them up expecting to find ruins, only to discover parts that barely aged.
Can you actually run a program for us?
I hope so.
Right.
So we'll let it run.
Some of these machines work better than modern versions that cost millions. It's embarrassing for today's technology and terrifying proof of how overbuilt the old world really was. Here are 15 machines modern engineers still can't beat. Number 15, the Centennial light bulb. Hanging quietly from the ceiling of Fire Station Number 6 in Livermore, California, is a light bulb that refuses to burn out. It is called the Centennial light, and it has been glowing almost non-stop since the year 1901. Many people know it as one of the longest-running machines in the world. The bulb was made in the late 1890s by the Shelby Electric Company in Ohio. It has hand-blown glass and a thick carbon filament, which were common in the early days of electric lighting. Unlike modern bulbs that burn very hot, this one uses only about 4 watts of power and gives off a soft orange glow. Because it stays cooler, the filament wears down very slowly, and the vacuum inside the bulb has stayed sealed for more than 100 years. Records from the fire station show that the bulb was first installed in the year 1901 at their original building on L Street. When the department moved to a new station in 1976, the bulb was carried there with great care and kept connected to power the entire time. Police officers and electricians even escorted it to make sure it would not be unplugged. Since then, the Centennial light has almost never gone dark. Only brief power cuts and a few maintenance transfers have stopped it for moments. In the 1970s, engineers from General Electric studied the bulb and confirmed it was an original Shelby design and that its filament was still in solid condition. In the year 2015, a digital power tracker was added to count every moment of operation, and it showed that the bulb had burned for more than 1 million hours. Today, anyone can view the bulb through a live webcam or visit it at the small Centennial Light Bulb Museum beside the station. 14. The Zetler clock. In the heart of Munich, inside the tower of St. Michael's Church, there is an electric clock from the 19th century that still keeps time more than 130 years after it was installed. It was built in the 1880s by the workshop of Johann Baptist Zetler, one of the earliest makers of electric clocks in Germany. His design marked an important shift from old pendulum clocks to the first forms of electrical timekeeping. The clock originally worked with a weight-driven mechanism. Later in the 19th century, Zetler upgraded it to use gentle electric impulses. A small electromagnetic coil sends timed pulses that keep the pendulum swinging with a steady and exact rhythm. Because this system replaced many moving gears, the clock needs very little oil and has suffered very little wear. Maintenance records show that the clock has only needed simple cleaning and minor rewiring. No major parts have been replaced since the early years of the 20th century. Even after all this time, the clock stays accurate within a few seconds per week, which is similar to many modern tower clocks. Its tiny platinum contact points still open and close just as they did when they were built. Only a small number of Zetler's early electric clocks were ever made, and very few survive today. The Munich clock has been studied and confirmed by clock experts and electrical historians as one of the oldest electric clocks that still works continuously. Unlike newer clocks that rely on quartz crystals or electronic circuits, this one depends only on gravity, simple magnetism, and strong metal craftsmanship. Its brass bearings and pendulum were built with wide tolerances so they can expand and contract as temperatures change through the seasons. The wooden case that protects the main pendulum has stayed sealed against dust and moisture for over a century. Through wars, weather, and changing technology, the Zetler clock has kept time for church visitors, locals, and tourists without a break. 13. The Pecket steam locomotive. In the early days of Britain's industrial age, the small but powerful steam engines made by Pecket and Son in Bristol were known as hard-working machines. They pulled heavy loads in factories, quarries, and industrial yards all across the country. One of these survivors is a locomotive called North Dorset, a saddle tank engine built in the year 1913. More than 110 years later, it is still fully operational. Unlike many steam engines that now sit in museums, North Dorset still works under real steam on a regular basis. These locomotives were built with simple designs, thick metal frames, and parts that were easy to repair. This toughness is the main reason so many of them lasted far into the 21st century. North Dorset was first delivered to a quarry in Somerset, where it spent decades pulling stone wagons. It worked through both World War I and World War II, needing only routine oiling and basic boiler care. When steam power in industry began to disappear in the 1960s, the locomotive was nearly scrapped. A group of volunteers rescued it, restored it, and returned it to working condition. By the early 1980s, North Dorset was back on the tracks. It has remained in service ever since, now used for tourist rides and short demonstration runs. Inspections by the United Kingdom Rail Safety Authority confirm that the locomotive still meets modern safety standards. This makes it one of the oldest steam engines in Britain that is still certified for heritage operation. Visitors to the North Dorset Railway can watch the locomotive in action. It moves with a steady rhythm, its pistons pumping and its polished brass shining as white steam rises into the air. The sound and motion feel like a piece of the industrial past brought back to life. More than a century after it left the Bristol factory, this little Pecket engine runs just as it was designed to. 12. The Harwell decatron computer. Inside the National Museum of Computing at Bletchley Park stands a huge computer from the very beginning of the digital age. It is called the Harwell decatron computer, and later it earned the nickname the Witch. Guinness World Records recognizes it as the oldest working digital computer in the world. It was built in the year 1951, and more than 70 years later, it still runs. This electromechanical machine fills an entire room. It uses thousands of mechanical relays, vacuum tubes, and special decatron counting tubes. These decatron tubes are small glass cylinders filled with gas that light up in tiny glowing dots to show numbers. When the machine is working, the front panels flash with bright orange lights, each flicker representing a single step in a calculation. Unlike modern computers that complete millions of operations each second, this one works at a slow human speed. It performs about one addition each second. In the 1950s, scientists actually liked this slower pace because they could watch every stage of the process as it happened. The computer stored information on punched paper tape and used relay switches to handle logic. Despite its age, the machine never truly broke down. It served at Harwell until the year 1957, then moved to Wolverhampton and Staffordshire Technical College, where it helped students learn about computing. It stayed in use until the early 1970s before being placed into storage. Many years later, a group of engineers carefully restored it using the computer's original circuit drawings. By the year 2012, the machine was running again exactly as it did in 1951. Almost every part is original, including all 828 decatron tubes and the electromechanical relays. Only the wiring insulation was updated for safety. Today, visitors can stand in front of the machine and watch it calculate in real time. The relays click rhythmically, and the orange decatron lights spin in slow patterns as the computer thinks. While most early computers survive only as silent museum pieces, this one is still alive. In a world full of fast and disposable technology, the Harwell decatron computer continues to work just as it did more than 70 years ago. 11. The Duryea motor wagon. One of the oldest gasoline-powered vehicles that still runs today is the Duryea motor wagon. It was built in the year 1893 by two brothers, Charles and Frank Duryea. They created it long before mass production or assembly lines existed. Working by hand in a small workshop in Springfield, they built what many experts consider the first successful gasoline car in the United States. More than 130 years later, one of these original vehicles is still able to operate. The motor wagon used a single-cylinder engine that produced 4 horsepower. It had a 2-speed transmission and seats similar to those on a bicycle. The frame came from a modified horse carriage. What made the brothers' design special was its reliability. Earlier experimental cars often broke down after only a few minutes, but the Duryea car started easily and could travel miles under its own power. In the year 1895, the brothers entered their car into the Chicago Times Herald Race, the first organized automobile competition in America. The Duryea motor wagon won first place, beating steam-powered and electric cars in cold November weather. This victory is seen as the beginning of the American car industry. Several Duryea cars still exist in museums, but one special example, cared for by the Smithsonian, can still move today. It has been restored, but it keeps nearly all of its original parts, including the wooden carriage body and brass fuel fittings. The engine still works with its original compression system, and the steering lever, brakes, and belt drive all function just as they did in 1893. The Smithsonian staff runs the vehicle from time to time at very low speeds to show how it works. It can start, idle, and travel short distances. A few privately owned Duryea cars have also been seen driving in historic parades. More than a century after it first rolled across American roads, the gentle sound of its single-cylinder engine still reminds us of the birth of the automobile. The first American car did not only make history, it still makes motion. 10. The Laxey Wheel. Above the village of Laxey on the Isle of Man stands a giant red and white water wheel that has been turning for more than 160 years. It is called the Laxey Wheel, or Lady Isabella, and it was completed in the year 1854. Its purpose was to pump water out of the Great Laxey Mine. Today, it is still one of the largest working water wheels in the world, and one of the oldest machines still running in its original form. The wheel is huge. It is about 72½ feet tall and 6 feet wide. It was designed by engineer Robert Casement and named after Lady Isabella Hope, the wife of the island's governor at the time. When it was first built, the wheel powered a system of rods and cranks that stretched more than 600 meters underground to lift water from the lower mine tunnels. It did all of this without fuel or electricity. Only gravity and flowing water kept it moving. When the mine closed in the year 1929, the Laxey Wheel was preserved as a historical monument. Careful restoration work over the years, especially in 1989 and again in 2022, replaced old iron parts and worn wood while keeping the original mechanism intact. Engineers have confirmed that much of the gearing, crankshaft, and bearing structure still comes from the original 1850s construction. Today, the wheel turns every day during the tourist season, powered by the same water channels that have fed it since Victorian times. Visitors can climb to the upper platform, where the rhythmic turning of the wheel and the sound of rushing water feel almost unchanged from the 19th century. 9. The Strasbourg astronomical clock. Inside the Strasbourg Cathedral stands a masterpiece of 19th century engineering that still runs every single day. It is the Strasbourg astronomical clock, completed in the year 1843. This is the third and most advanced version of a project that began in the 14th century. This clock does far more than tell the time. It shows the positions of the sun and moon, the phases of the moon, the dates of solar and lunar eclipses, the equinoxes, and even the date of Easter based on both the solar calendar and church tradition. It is also filled with moving mechanical figures. Every hour, automaton figures come to life, including a daily scene at noon where the apostles pass in front of Christ. The designer, Jean-Baptiste Schwilge, a mathematician and clockmaker from Strasbourg, spent more than 30 years creating this movement. He built a gear system with nearly 100,000 parts, many of which still function today. Unlike simple mechanical clocks that use only weights and escapements, this one includes astronomical gears and a calendar system designed to stay accurate until the year 9999. Remarkably, the clock still operates with the same gears, escapement, and astronomical tables installed in 1843. It must be wound once a week by hand to raise the heavy counterweights. Though a few worn brass and iron pieces have been replaced, the original mechanism remains almost fully intact. Every day at solar noon, crowds gather to watch the Apostles' procession and the call of the mechanical rooster. The show has continued almost unchanged for generations. Today, this machine still performs its precise and complex calculations. 8. The Oxford Electric Bell. Few machines on Earth have run as long as a tiny bell built in the 1840s, yet it has been tapping away for nearly 2 centuries without stopping. It is called the Oxford Electric Bell, and it quietly holds one of the longest continuous run times of any device ever made. The design is simple. 2 small brass bells sit on either side of a metal ball. When the ball touches one bell, it picks up an electric charge and swings toward the other. Each touch creates a soft tap, then the ball swings back again. This motion has repeated millions of times, powered only by 2 mysterious dry pile batteries. These batteries are the true puzzle. They were made so long ago that no one knows exactly what is inside them. Opening them would destroy the experiment, so their inner materials remain unknown. Somehow they release a steady, low-power charge that has lasted far beyond any modern battery. The bell was first set up by physicist Robert Walker, and it has been running almost non-stop since the early days of electrical science. Over the years, it has tapped its bells billions of times. Even though the sound is too soft to hear through its glass case, the steady swing of the metal ball shows that the circuit is still alive. 7. The Pulley hydroelectric turbines. In the town of Pulley in Switzerland, a set of hydroelectric turbines built in the early 1900s is still producing power more than 100 years later. These machines were part of one of the region's first efforts to turn flowing water into steady electrical energy. And remarkably, they continue to work almost exactly as they did when they were first installed. The turbines were built during a time when electricity was still new, and engineers were learning how to harness water power for everyday use. Their design is simple, but incredibly strong. Water from nearby streams is directed through channels and hits the curved blades of the turbines, causing them to spin. This turning motion drives generators that create electricity for the surrounding community. Many early hydroelectric systems were replaced long ago because of wear, corrosion, or upgrades to newer technology. But the turbines in Pulley survived thanks to careful construction and regular maintenance. Their metal housings, shafts, and blades were built thick and sturdy, with enough tolerance to handle changes in water pressure year after year. Although some parts have been cleaned and reinforced over time, the original turbine mechanisms still operate. Engineers have confirmed that the alignment of the shafts and the balance of the blades remain close to their factory condition, even after a century of use. When water flows through the system, the turbines spin with the same smooth motion they had in the early 20th century. Today, the Pulley turbines are both a source of local electricity and a living museum of early renewable energy. Visitors can see the old machinery turning steadily, powered only by moving water. The gentle hum of the generators and the rush of the current show how simple natural forces can keep a machine running for generations. 6. The Beverly Clock. Inside the physics building of a university in Dunedin, New Zealand, sits a clock that quietly defies modern expectations. The Beverly clock was built in the year 1864 by watchmaker and inventor Arthur Beverly. Since the day it started, it has never been manually wound, yet it still keeps perfect time today. What powers it is simple but brilliant. Inside the clock is a sealed box of air. Daily changes in temperature and shifts in atmospheric pressure cause the air to expand or contract. That motion pushes on a diaphragm connected to a mechanism that lifts a small weight, just enough to keep the clock running. A change of only a few degrees is all it takes to give the clock the energy it needs. Because its power comes from natural daily changes, air and temperature, the Beverly clock transforms the passing of time itself into its own fuel. It runs almost effortlessly. Over the years, the clock has survived mechanical wear, long periods of steady climate when it nearly paused, and even maintenance. yet it keeps ticking without fail, using its original mechanism. 5. The Newcomen steam engine. Built in the early 1700s, the Newcomen engine is one of the oldest machines on Earth that still works. What makes it shocking is how straightforward the design is and how much power it creates. Steam is pushed into a large metal cylinder, lifting a piston inside it. Then cold water is sprayed into the same cylinder. The steam instantly collapses, creating a vacuum so strong that it drags the piston downward with surprising force. That rising and falling motion rocks a huge iron beam, and the beam powers a pump that pulls water out of deep mines. This machine ran non-stop in the 1700s and carried entire mining operations on its back. Even more unbelievable, many of its original parts from the 1720s still move today. The beam, the frame, and much of the old ironwork perform the same motion they did 3 centuries ago. For safety, the restored engine now runs on compressed air instead of real steam. But the movement you see is exactly what workers saw in the early days of the Industrial Revolution. 4. The San Francisco cable cars. Long before modern transit existed, a system built in the 1870s began climbing San Francisco's hills. Today, it is still doing the same job, making the city's cable cars one of the oldest working transportation systems in the world. Their secret lies beneath the streets. Deep underground, powerful engines pull thick steel cables in a continuous loop. Each cable moves at a steady speed. When a cable car needs to go, the grip operator pulls a lever that makes a metal jaw grab the moving cable. That simple connection gives the car enough power to climb steep hills or roll smoothly through the city. The machinery that keeps this system alive is strong and built to last. Heavy gears, wheels, and motors in the central powerhouse run day and night, and much of the equipment is still based on its original design from the 19th century. The cable cars have survived earthquakes, fires, and even the threat of being removed, but the people of San Francisco fought to keep them. Today they are protected as a historic landmark. Every ride is still operated by hand. The familiar bell rings, the grip catches the cable, and the car glides forward just as it did more than 150 years ago. Millions of visitors ride them each year, and the experience has barely changed. The wooden seats, the open sides, and the steady hum of the cable beneath the street still carry the feeling of another time. After all these years, the San Francisco cable cars continue to work exactly as intended, proving that simple, strong mechanical engineering can outlast generations. 3. The Chicago Water Tower Pump System. When Chicago burned in 1871, almost everything fell, but one machine refused to die. The pumping system inside the Chicago Water Tower stood through the flames and survived one of the worst urban disasters in American history. Built in the 1860s, this pump was the heart of Chicago's early water supply. Using a powerful vertical engine, it pulled water from Lake Michigan and pushed it across a growing city. Its design was simple and tough: a heavy piston, strong iron parts, and a system built to run non-stop with very little maintenance. During the Great Chicago Fire, buildings all around the tower collapsed, but the pump house remained standing. Its stone walls and iron machinery outlasted a firestorm that destroyed thousands of structures. Because of this, the water tower became a famous symbol of survival, and the pump inside it became a reminder of how strong early engineering could be. Even though the original pump no longer powers the city's water system, much of the equipment has been preserved. Visitors can still see the thick rods, valves, and carved stone that once carried the lifeline of an entire city. The machinery remains a working example of how water was moved long before electric systems took over. More than 150 years after it was built, the Chicago Water Tower and its historic pump still stand as a monument to durability. It is a survivor from an age when machines were built to last, and this one proved it by outliving the fire that nearly erased the city around it. 2. The Jensen Machine Works steam engine. More than a century after it first came to life, a powerful steam engine from the 1890s is still running at the old Jensen Machine Works in Rhode Island. This engine once powered the machines that built equipment for New England's booming textile industry, and today it remains a fully working piece of America's industrial past. The design is classic late Victorian engineering. A huge cast-iron flywheel turns as steam pushes heavy pistons back and forth. Those pistons connect to a crankshaft that once drove belts stretching across an entire workshop. In its working days, this engine powered lathes, looms, and milling machines through a network of pulleys suspended above the factory floor. Even though production stopped long ago, preservation engineers and volunteers kept the engine alive. It now runs on low-pressure steam from a modern boiler for safety, but the motion and sound are exactly the same as they were in the 1890s. The oil cups, valve gear, governor, and even the original bearings still do the job they were built for. What makes this machine remarkable is that it was never rebuilt or retired. When engineers tested the flywheel and cylinder in the early 2000s, they found both still within the original factory tolerances. After more than 100 years, the engine moves with the same smooth rhythm it had when it powered the shop floor. Today, demonstrations draw engineers, students, and anyone fascinated by early industry. Watching the steel rods and linkages glide in perfect timing feels like stepping back into the 19th century. It is a rare survivor from a time when machines were built not just to work, but to last for generations. Number 1. The Zexicia machine and fabric printing press. More than a century after it first rolled ink onto paper, a heavy letterpress machine from 1910 is still working in a small workshop in Leipzig, Germany. Once used in a busy print shop, this Zexicia machine and fabric press continues to produce fine art prints using its original cast-iron rollers, plates, and belt-driven mechanics. The press was built by a respected engineering firm in Saxony, known for precise industrial machines in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. When it was installed in a commercial print shop, it produced newspapers, books, and posters for local publishers. After the shop closed in the 1960s, a master printer bought the machine and preserved it with great care. Today, the press still runs as smoothly as it did 100 years ago. Its flywheel, crankshaft, and inking system are all original. Operators can power it with a foot pedal or a small motor, and each pull of the mechanism presses metal type or etched plates cleanly against paper. The tolerances remain tight, showing the strength of German engineering. Only the consumable parts, such as rubber rollers and inking pads, have ever been replaced. The iron frame, gears, and cams still perform their jobs with perfect rhythm. Regular oiling and careful cleaning keep the machine ready for work, just as it was in its earliest days. The press has been active through every chapter of the last century. It worked non-stop until 1963, then ran occasionally through the Cold War, and returned to steady use in the 1990s. Today, it prints limited edition books, posters, and handmade cards, linking traditional craftsmanship to the modern world. In an age dominated by digital technology, this early 20th century letterpress continues to clank and hum with life. With nothing more than human rhythm and mechanical motion, it proves that simple, well-built machines can last far beyond the era that created them. These machines weren't built with algorithms or automation, just patience, craftsmanship, and a dedication to making things that last. And a century later, they're still proving their makers right. In a world full of disposable tech, these survivors remind us that real longevity comes from real engineering. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.